Hello, in this video, let's look into future value with Excel. As you know, the future value is equal to initial deposit multiplied with 1 plus r raised to the nth power. And if you have a 6% interest rate and if you deposit $100 in a bank, then you know that in 1 year you will have $106, in 2 years $112.36, and so forth. So if we want to do this in Excel, what we will do is we will put the initial deposit in a cell, interest rate in the next cell, and then number of years in another cell. And then we are going to write down the formula as the way we know it, but in Excel cell values rather than the values that are given to us. So in this case, you can see that what we are doing is we are, first of all, using an equal sign. You have to always include an equal sign whenever you are performing a function in Excel. And then we put B2, because in this case, initial deposit $100 is in B2, multiplied by 1 plus B3, which is the interest rate, and close parentheses raised to the power B4. B4 is where we have the number of years. This raising to the power, this sign that you have in here, is in your keyboard, and that is the sign that is right above number 6 in your keyboard. Then if we want to compute this for a number of years, like 20 years, then what we can do is we can enter the formula and use Excel's copy and paste functions and make it easier for us to make calculations. But before we do that, we have to make sure that the initial deposit, which is in B2, in cell B2, we have to fixate that or keep it constant so that it doesn't change. And to do that, what we do is we use these dollar signs before the letter part of that cell. We put one before and another one after that. And then we not only do that for the initial deposit, but we also do that for the interest rate. So let's switch to an Excel spreadsheet and let's see how we do that in there. So as you can see, I have this. Let me make this a little larger so you can see better. So I have the initial investment, $100, interest rate as 11%. So I'm going to start with years 0 and then year 1, and then I'm going to highlight those two and copy that all the way down to 20 years. And then in order to calculate the future value, I'm going to use that equal sign, and I'm going to use the cell where that initial deposit is, multiply that with 1 plus the interest rate, raise that to power of the year, which is in this case year 0, which is in cell B8 in my case. So now I have my formula ready to go, but before I copy that formula down the cells so that I can utilize the same formula, I'm adding these dollar signs so that I can make sure that those two cells where the initial investment is and where the interest rate is are constant. They're not going to change. They're going to stay fixed. And then once I do that, I can copy this formula down, and it's going to calculate all the future values from year 0 all the way to year 20 for me. Now, if I want to plot this, what I'll do is I will highlight these 2 columns. Then I will go up to insert. I'm going to insert a chart, and I want to do a scatter plot. And here I have my scatter plot where it labeled it as future value, but I can change that to say the future value of $100 at 11%, or you can change that title to whatever you prefer that to be. The next one in this Excel spreadsheet is, let me make this larger. What if we want to calculate the future value of $100 at different interest rates? As you can see, I have 0%, 6%, and 12%. So I can start with entering the years. I have to enter those first 2, 0, 1, and then copy that down. And again, to copy that down, what I'm doing is I'm going to the end of those highlighted cells. When I see that plus sign, I drag it down, and I do that all the way to 20 years. And then I'll do the same thing. I will create my equation with the initial investment multiplied with 1 plus the interest rate, which is 0%, and then all that multiplied with the year. And what I can do is I can fix the first cell, and then fix the interest rate cell. Then this one is ready to go. I have to do the same thing in here, times 1 plus 6% this time, raised to n, and then it's 100 times 1 plus 12%, but again, keep in mind that I'm not really entering the values, but I am entering cell numbers to make sure that I can copy my formulas down. But before I copy, I'm adding these dollar signs to make sure that the initial deposit and the interest rate are fixed. And I'm going to do that for 12% interest rate as well. And then I am ready to copy that all the way down. And it's going to calculate all of that for me. And as you can see that if the interest rate is 0, then the value is staying the same because it's really not earning any additional interest income, and it stays as 0 for us because the power of 1 raised to any power is always equal to 1. So let me go back to my PowerPoint presentation. You can see that you can also create the chart for these different future values at 0% and at 6% and 12%. Now, the other thing that we have to pay attention to is beginning of year versus end of year. You can see in this chart that beginning of year is today, and then end of year corresponds to year one, and then end of year two corresponds to year two. But sometimes payments are made at the beginning of the year versus end of the year. So there's going to be different interest accumulation based on that. So let's look at this example. If we deposit $100 today, and at the beginning of years 1, 2, all the way to 10, and if the interest rate is 6%, how much will you have at the end of 10 years? And to do that, you can create this table with Excel, and you can see that for year one, initially we have 0 beginning balance, and there is a $100 deposit, and the interest earned during the year is $6, and that's a total of $106. So the following year, year two, we start with 106, another deposit of 100 is added. That creates an interest of $12.36, and then that totals at the end of the year to $218.36. So you can create this table, and I can go back to my Excel spreadsheet and show you that same beginning of year calculations. So we said that, well, we are at year one, beginning balance is 0, but then there is a deposit of $100, and we know that the interest is going to be equal to that value times the interest rate. Again, that interest rate is not going to change, so we can always make sure that we can fix that value. And then the total will be equal to deposit at the beginning of year plus the interest earned. That's going to give us that $106. Now next year, year number 2, we're going to start with whatever was in the account. So, and then there's going to be another $100 deposit, and that is going to also earn interest for us. So the interest right now is going to be equal to whatever we had in the bank plus the additional deposit multiplied by the interest rate, and then the total will be equal to this initial amount plus the $100 deposit plus the interest earned. So that's going to give us that $218.36. So you can continue to fill out this table as it was presented to you in this PowerPoint presentation. Then the next step is trying to do this with Excel's future value function, which makes it easier for us, because when we enter the future value, then what we could do is we can enter the interest rate, number of years, which in this case is 10 years, and the payment, which is $100. We have to be careful with Excel that we have to enter that as a negative number so that we get a positive number at the end. And then in order to indicate to Excel that these payments were deposited at the beginning of year, we are going to enter type as 1. As you can see, type is entered as 1 in this future value function argument. If you leave it blank or if you enter 0, then it's going to assume that the payments were deposited at the end of the year rather than the beginning of the year. So you can see in here that beginning of year versus end of year calculations, and there is a difference with how much one can accumulate, whether they deposit at the beginning of the year or at the end of the year. The beginning of year ended up with almost $1,400, whereas the end of year is a little over than $1,300, as every payment is earning interest, and from the beginning to the end of year, there's that full year where interest income is earned. So you can also create this same chart with Excel using the end of year calculations and Excel's future value function. But again, with this, you are going to leave that type either blank or you're going to enter 0 in there to make sure that it calculates the value correctly for you. So let me stop this video in here, and I will see you in the present value video later on. Talk to you later.